Hi, Issa. This is Nisa. There's so much to talk about. I'm not going to do a little fancy intro, but I'll just ask the questions and you can take it away. You've been an active artist in residence at the Living Museum, which is at Creedmoor. So can you describe how art and mental health intersect in your work?
I was an artist all my life. My mother was an artist, my father was a musician, so I came from an artistic household. I went to art school for a short time before I got sick and had to be hospitalized. But I was fortunate. It was almost like a bittersweet, like a mixed blessing, to be sent and have to be remanded and committed to Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, which has this art program called the Living Museum. And that is an amazing, wondrous, premier art space for the art of the mentally ill. And so I discovered while working there the importance of using my voice as an artist and as a mentally ill artist to put across certain themes and ideas that push against the stereotypes and the stigma of mental health. Oftentimes the stereotypes of people with mental illness is that they're retarded. We just use that old-fashioned term, developmentally disabled, stupid, dumb, violent, dangerous. So I want to use my art as a way to push against those stereotypes. And I found that place that I happened to be an inpatient at, almost like a prisoner, almost. It was just a bittersweet thing, how I was there for 20 years, committed, but every day I got to go and paint in this huge space with other artists, an art studio. And I got to do a lot of great work that really pushed the envelope of what is expected of an artist and a mentally ill artist. And also it pushed me to grow. I had the space to really expand and think about different ways of laying things out as opposed to being in a small space at an easel. So just to go back to your question, how does it intersect? I think that place, having gone to the Living Museum, was a wonderful intersection of art and mental health, which in the last 20, 25 years has become popular, or outside of art has exploded, or has become a legitimized form of artwork. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who at one time maybe dabbled in art, but never thought they could do anything worthwhile with themselves or their art, now have opportunities and venues that they can go to, including the gallery that I belong to, Fountain House Gallery, which is the premier gallery space for the artists with mental illness. So there are more opportunities for people who couldn't work anywhere else or had limited options and limited opportunities, but had proclivities in the arts. Mm. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time several times in my life.
That's good to hear. So just tell me, it seems like mental health or mental illness, whichever term you prefer.
That's a hot button. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So it's just whatever you feel comfortable with, I'll accept.
Okay. All right.
You know, I was a patient, then I was a consumer, then I went, for the last 30 years, I went through all the different nomenclatures of what they're supposed to call and what was politically correct to call mental patients, or mentally ill people, or people with mental health challenges, or whatever. Yeah. So whatever you feel comfortable with, I'm fine.
Okay, sure. So just tell me, how does insanity, because I know you use that term, how does insanity inspire the creative process?
Speaking just personally, when you're going through those episodes, you're uninhibited. There's a certain freedom from social constructs and social mores, and that can get you in trouble as well. But for a creative individual, that's when you're really flying, when you don't have any constraints. And so I think when you're in those states, you're channeling sometimes the most uninhibited, unfettered, you're just flying. Unhinged. That's a freedom that a lot of people wish they had and don't have. In fact, there are a lot of artists who go to school and have MAs and BAs in art, and they end up having to take psychedelics to mimic the natural states that people with mental health kind of go through naturally.
Yeah.
So we're actually in a better position to channel those arts, you know?
Yeah, I know for me, I think my brain off meds is like a drug trip.
Yes, mine too.
Oh, God.
Yes, yes. And you know, it's alluring. It's there's a certain euphoria in that. It's scary as all hell after a while, but that initial build up to it is something that a lot of people return to because it is so really like intense, and it's like breathing deep for the first time. Like we're all shallow breathers because we're afraid of being exposed as mentally ill and then stigmatized. So when you do finally breathe those deep breaths of mental illness, it's like you're alive for the first time. You know? So
Yeah.
it can be alluring, but it can be a problem too.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed the superheroes.
Well, okay, this painting I did called Superman on the Rocks was done in 1995, and it's probably my most popular and well-known paintings. It's traveled the world, not only physically, but also it's been on an HBO documentary. It's been seen all over the place. It features Superman slumped in a lounge chair. And he's got his shirt is pulled up over his belly, and he's got like a belly, and he's got a beer can, he's got a cigarette, and he's got junk food over by his table. And I always looked at it as a person with tremendous potential, letting it go to waste. I mean, you know, of the person who you would think have the most potential, Superman. And he's lounging like a bum, like vegging out, like a couch potato, surfing the channels on his television, you know? And I certainly felt that when I painted that, I felt that way because I was a patient in a hospital, and I had a television, and I was sitting in my room, and I felt like my potential was being wasted. But then I've shown that painting all over the world. There are a lot of people who look at it and say, yeah, we all need a day off every once in a while. And they rally around the idea of it's a hardworking man just enjoying his time off. So I realize it has dual layers to it that other people see. And they're entitled to see that and feel that. But just my initial creation idea was wasted potential.
Wow.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So I notice a lot of your work, you use superheroes, also politicians, and you infuse these characters into sometimes iconic images, and such as the Abbey Road album cover. What was it? Featuring Jesus,
Hitler,
Hitler,
Malcolm X, and Elvis.
And Elvis. Okay. That's one example. So I'm wondering, by using these figures, these iconic figures, how does that affect the message of the painting? What do these superheroes and politicians represent?
They represent the idols that we all vaulted. As a child of the 20th century, I was put in front of the television like a lot of other people, and that was my babysitter. So I took in a lot of programming, let's just say. And it wasn't until I got sick that I feel like I saw the truth. And we're living in a bankrupt culture. And obviously, I really feel like in the last 20 years, or certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, the whole idea of Trump becoming president, that's the end game of something that I and other artists have been painting and predicting for the last 30 years. So these superheroes and politicians and icons, it's a sense of looking beyond the idol that they put in front of you to worship and seeing the truth.
I know advocacy is a driving force for you. So how does your art embody the spirit of advocacy, not only in the mental health domain, but in other domains that you are passionate about?
There's a quote from Saul Bellow that was, "The world has become so shock resistant that the only thing that can touch us is art or poetry or music." So I feel like the arts may be the last and only thing that will penetrate the onslaught of lies and delusion and the issues that we're dealing with currently. The only thing that could possibly penetrate these things are the arts. And that's why I'm using whatever tools I have. I could go out on the street with a bullhorn and a placard and try to picket and protest like anybody else. And sometimes that makes a little bit of difference. But I really feel like my strength is at my easel, where I can look at the news and look at the world situation, and look at the truth of it through my own lens, of course, and look at the truth of it and paint the truth and then present that on a larger forum. So it's a question of pulling the curtain back on the political scene, which is a mess, on the racial scene, on the mental health scene, which really needs help. It's a broken system, and so many people don't get help. And so many people are afraid to get help, and they know they're sick, but they're afraid to get help because they know that it doesn't work and it's broken. So they'd much rather use their CBD oils or to take their pod or their ayahuasca. And maybe that helps for a little while, but that's kind of like just masking your depression with alcohol. Inevitably, you're just going to get too drunk and you may become a problem. Because that was my problem with marijuana. I came from a household that was inundated with marijuana because they say, oh, it'll chill you out. And it did chill me out for a while until it just drove me insane. So too much of anything is no good. That's basically the takeaway from that. But I use my art in advocacy, the areas I've touched my life, being a Black male, being mentally ill, being poor, or at least in the social strata where I'm affected by low income. I tend to focus on the areas that affect me personally, but I also have my eye on the world and the problems of the world. And I have a big heart, and I feel, I'm empathetic, and I feel for people who are suffering. So I feel like maybe I could say something and do something to make it better in some small way.
That's awesome. Cool.